All right, hello there, people of the internet. My name is Oduor Jagero, and this is Political Headache. Today, I'm in the studio with Mr. Advice Mundalo. Mr. Advice Mundalo is a communication specialist, is an aspiring politician.
What do you mean aspiring?
He's a politician, and the last two or three episodes, I've really loved it. Yeah. The women love you for your articulation. I don't know what are the politicians saying about you? Because we when it comes to politics, do we care about what women think?
It's very, very important.
Women
have made several people leaders. Women have made several people get elected. So when women have
I just mean when they like your jacket.
No. Why you can becoming jealous? You're just becoming jealous. You know?
The political economy of love.
Allow the women to love me in peace.
Yeah. I think you're a likable character.
Yeah.
I hope that your constituents will love you when you finally throw your hat in the ring.
Sure.
But anyway, people of the internet, today is a special day in Kenyan politics. We used to have Raila coming now, so wanasema Baba Mekucha.
Yes.
Yeah? And today we have Baba of the Mountain.
They're now calling him king.
They're calling him king?
They are now calling him king. I saw the DCP deputy party leader, Cleophas Malala, calling him king in the morning. I don't know whether he's aware that those titles are actually more point out to a dictatorship than a democracy. But be that as it may, Rigathi Gachagua is back in the country. He's come back. And there's been a lot of talk about the fanfare around it. But I've kept feeling like he should be able to come back. He should be able to be received in whichever way, format that he can be received, for as long as it does not interfere with the normal running of the business of Kenyans. Because at the end of the day, he's just a Kenyan like any other. He's one of the ordinary citizens that we have. And so many Kenyans are coming into the country and getting out every day. So for as long as it does not interfere, because most of the time we have these kind of things, we have the businessmen running into losses just because of some of these political orchestras. So I'm hoping that it does not interfere with the normal running of Kenyans. If anything, the party that they want to have to receive him as a DCP party leader, because they have every right to, it can actually be restricted at the DCP headquarters. That way it cannot be able to interfere with anybody. Yeah.
I think you're just jealous of the man because
calling him an ordinary citizen.
Yeah, calling him an ordinary citizen is really. I mean, Gachagua is not an ordinary citizen. Gachagua is a man who has got a very huge constituency, and a lot of people love him. But I understand where you're coming from.
Yeah, but by ordinary I mean simply the fact that he's not a holder of necessarily public office. So he's like any other. He's like you, Jagero. You have very many followers on social media. But you're not stopping the airport for you to come.
Did they stop the airport?
He's just coming in today. That's what I'm saying. That in whatever form and nature that they are able to welcome him, it should not be able to stop the normal functioning of Kenyans, the business people, and every other person. People must be allowed to carry out their business as usual.
Yeah, I asked Kasimwel Makaure in the morning about what he thought about his entire tour in the USA. A lot of people accused him of bigotry. A lot of people accused him of being tribalistic, and people were asking, "How do you go to another country and look for only your tribesmen, and then have traditional dancers that are singing Kikuyu, and some of those town hall meetings are being organized in people are visibly talking in Kikuyu language." He accuses Ruto of sitting down with terrorists, you remember? And he also, I don't know whether this is true, but he's also, egging on the American government to kick us out of as a non-NATO ally. What do you think about the whole, tour that he has undertaken? Do you think, how does it elevate him politically, especially in the country, vis-a-vis probably the money that he's gotten from his kinsmen in the United States?
I'll answer it in two folds, Jagero. One, when I look at it from a political vantage point of view, I'll be able to say he had quite a well-coordinated political trip.
Yeah.
Because political relevance is more about how relevant you can actually be where it matters the most. And he remained relevant throughout his stay. He remained on the headlines of the Kenyan news throughout his stay in the United States. If anything, it pointed out to the reality that most of his colleagues in the opposition do not equate to him, because they were in the country and Rigathi Gachagua was outside the country, but they didn't manage to even hold the media attention that Gachagua was able to actually hold. So from a political point of view, I think it was quite a politically upright trip for him. He was able to actually mobilize very well, even in the United States. Remember, even when we say that he was mobilizing people of his ethnic community, it is the same thing that Rigathi has been accused of all through. Even when he is in Kenya, his constituent is still people of one region.
Yeah.
And he understands that his biggest political bargain on the bargaining table is that region. So he has advanced it. Even when he goes to another country, he would still mobilize in the same fashion, because that is where his politics is anchored. So politically, I think it was advantage to him. But then now, in the other aspect now of governance, I think now from a governance perspective, it was very underwhelming, because now the first thing is we are going back to the era where we think that the West is superior to us, where the sovereignty of African countries is really questioned, because we cannot be able to be having our leaders always going outside there to purport to report us to others, because we always, in as much as we are an independent country, and our forefathers fought very hard for the independence of Kenya, for instance. So we must be able to hold ourselves in order. We must be able to task ourselves that we can actually get things in order and in control. This idea of always making the West look as though they are the prefect of all of us is not, in my view, an idea that advances our democracy and advances our sovereignty. So Rigathi Gachagua behaved as though he has gone to report to a senior prefect on duty. So he has taken the ills of Kenya, and so he wants to report them to some senior prefect on duty, who is the United States and President Trump. In that regard, I felt that was very underwhelming of him.
But do you have a problem with the ills of Kenya?
Every country, Jagero, including the United States, has their own ills. And you have not been able to see the United States reporting their ills to Kenya. If anything, what happens with most of the countries and most of the citizens is that every time you are outside your country, you are the ambassador #1 of your own country. So we must be able to inculcate a culture where we are our own ambassadors, whereby when we are outside there, we must be able to make people see the beautiful view of Kenya, how good we can be able to do, not because we want to be blind to the realities of the problems that we have, but because as ambassadors of our own country, that is what we are supposed to do. Most of the Kenyans today, when they see a white person in the streets, they accord him abnormal respect. Not because of anything else, but because the West has been able to sell itself to Africans as though they are the best thing that happened after sliced bread. Most of the Kenyans today do not even know that when you go to the United States, you'll be shocked that we have homeless people in the United States.
As a matter of fact, Trump was kicking them out of Washington, D.C. just the other day.
But that is not what they come to Kenya to speak about every other time. They are able to actually sell themselves as these democratic countries, the institutions are working and all that. So for a person of the level of a former deputy president, he needed to do better in terms of selling the country than portraying the country as a dustbin. Because that is more or less what he was able to be doing. Everything he wanted to talk about the country, it was in false light. It was about report the country to the bigger brother. The president of the country is meeting terrorists. And, those are things that, and to make it even worse, he cannot be able to justify most of the things he's able to say. So it is more like going to another country to peddle rumors about your own state. I think that is quite unfortunate. If the veracity of the matter is as heavy and as high as he really thinks it is, then those are things that we must be able to report within our structures here and be able to follow through, that we get solutions to them. Not just making political bites out of them and looking for views on social media and political expediency. And unfortunately for us, most of our leaders are engaging more on the basis of seeking political expediency than seeking solutions for the country. So I think from a governance perspective, it was extremely pathetic. But from political lens, then he did very well politically.
Ochoka, what do you think? What is your overall thoughts about him going and reporting the country Kenya to the big brother?
I'm just drawn to a very particular instance where a lady stood up, I think it was a town hall, remember, and asked Rigathi Gachagua about his philosophical underpinning of Murima.
Yeah.
And it's true, just like what advisors said, that he went to the US to export the very same constituency. I would have imagined, because the diasporic community in every country in Africa or even Latin America is very important and significant in terms of FDI remission, FDIs in terms of even the political voice of the international community.
Yes.
So I would have respected if he upheld that, because when you're on a political stage, you have the responsibility as a patriot to not just paint your country in bad light. Yes, there are things that might be wrong within the house, but there are also beautiful things that are happening here. And he, in that light, he would have at least had a bit of an objective platform to paint or portray the country in that light. Number two, I feel like he was very overly excited in terms of reporting to the headmaster, because in the international community, the US is always seen as the headmaster of the global scene, geopolitics, and which failed bigly, in my opinion, because then again, you're looking at somebody who has no facts to his fingers. It was mostly politically rhetorics. Rhetorics were mostly a better part of the things he was saying. He could not substantiate beyond the aching of him having been thwarted out of government, of course.
Yeah.
So whether or not some of those things were true, he was also not offering an alternative system of voicing political governance. Like, what am I as Rigathi Gachagua, having been part of the government that is the country seems to be feeling is not doing their job, or not fulfilling their manifesto? What can he offer? What does he think is not going right? And what might be in the best interest of collaboration, whether we are looking at bilateral agreement between Kenya and the USA or other political actors in the geopolitical scene. So I feel like it was a bit of a failure to transfer the village worldview to a political scene.
Yeah.
But then we can also not just simply reduce him to a failure in itself. Just like you have also mentioned, he managed to actually keep the media on toes. People were talking and discussing, what could this visit in the US mean? What is the implication of what is he saying? What happens when he comes back as sort of like a metaphor for the prophet or the king coming back, just like Cleophas Malala is now saying? Is he a king now? If he's a king of Murima, does that make him less a king elsewhere in the region? All these questions put together, do they make him less significant in the political rhetorics that are coming towards 2027?
Yeah. And the other question that I wanted to ask is that Murkomen actually said that he needed to go to the police station or to the DCI and report what and substantiate his claims that the President of the Republic of Kenya was meeting with the terrorists. You know, so why do you think that the government actually has decided that, okay, let us let it slide, we don't need to? Do you think that it's a way of not, because I have a feeling that Gachagua has always wanted the persecution. He has always dared the government to do something to him, like arrest him or do something that is very close to him. Why do you think that politicians mostly would want the government to pursue them in this manner? What does that add to their ambitions?
It is purely political expediency, Jagero. The reason why politicians, especially when we are heading towards elections, they would really want to thrive in arrests and a lot of drama around their life. Because unfortunately, we are a society that does not interrogate the governance system and what people are supposed to be doing. But we simply look at the drama around it, and then you get some sympathy votes. It's a pity party kind of thing. So you look at it, the reason why Gachagua is very, very interested in this kind of thing, and why he's pushing government to those extremes, is because he knows that the moment he gets arrested, it becomes a national headline. And you know, our media is also sensational. Our media is more interested in the drama than the governance, unfortunately. Because when there is a member of parliament building a classroom somewhere in Larieda, it doesn't make national news. When there is a member of parliament presenting a serious bill in parliament, it doesn't make national news. But if there is a member of parliament who is being dramatic or fighting in parliament or spewing some unprintable words, now that is what makes it to our news. And that is the unfortunate scenario. And that's why people like Rigathi Gachagua would really want that drama, that, you know, the policemen, and you know the way our media knows how to go live with such cases. When you tell them to go live because there is a bank that is educating the young people on the aspect of banking, they'll ask to be paid. They'll say it's a commercial. Yeah. But when there is a drama, Rigathi is being arrested, all media houses will be running live. And that is the kind of thing that gives a politician political expediency, unfortunately. And that is the reason why someone would be daring government to such kind of extremes. I'm really hoping that government does not eat that bait. Yeah, I'm really hoping that government does not eat that bait, so that it does not feed into the political expediency. But again, government must balance between not eating the bait and allowing things that are very unlawful to continue. Because allegations against a head of state of any country, not just Kenya, are not things you take lightly, are not things you just take as underlying facts and it's just propaganda as usual. It is something that can be said about the country as normal. It is something that government must take very seriously. And through some way, it must be able to be substantiated. Because if anyone can say anything about the head of state, then how safe are the rest of us who do not are not heads of government? We do not control the military. We do not control the... So for us to be able to show that we are in control, for Kenya to show that it's in control of the country, government must not take such accusations lying down.
But what would they do? Chuka, if you are government, what would you do to the accusations? If, for example, they're saying that Ruto has met with the terrorists, I mean, what could Ruto be doing with terrorists? Planning to terrorize Kenyans? Why would Ruto meet with terrorists?
I do agree and support that was such a serious allegation of critical national interest outlook. So much that I think that the government should have proceeded with him going to at least record a statement about it. Yeah. In a civil manner. Yeah. Of course, what Rigathi is actually pandering for is the idea of becoming a political matter, not dead yet. Yeah. Because matters are known to be dead. Yeah. Yeah. So when you're a political matter who's not yet dead, you have political fodder. And the fashion of Rigathi Gachagua's politics has always been fodder. I have never seen any case where he is very seriously involved in objective governance issues. Mostly, even if he's mentioning interests that are touching on the gamer community or the gamer counties, it's just rhetorics of coffee, tea, milk, and all that. But there's no serious debate and discourse or political discourse in terms of how do we do this as a country or how do we do this as a community. Understand? So that was basically to try and stoke the embers of fire of the government, and then also he would have a reason to paint it back to the community, like I told you, so this guy is a bad person. Understand? That's number one. Number two, I feel like he knows that Ruto has been at least on a change of a trajectory in terms of wanting to now start doing things per business. Ruto has changed tune to want to at least account for what he promised in his manifesto. Understand? So when there are these
do you think that that Gachagua are some of the factors that are pushing him towards the direction?
No, most likely we cannot rule it out. Yeah. But I'm looking on him, the president, as finally getting to a point where I need to actually do one or two things so that at least our country is in the best direction. So that way, when there is these sideshows, it actually distracts you from the work you're supposed to be doing. It's a very small spectacle, but that's just like what you said. Our politics is about fodder. It's about the tea and gossip that people talk about when people meet at the market, when people meet at the Busa Club, you see, but not really about what the government is doing at county level, about the finance that have delayed the unpaid contractors in county governments. we rarely talk about that. And I think that still feeds to the conundrum that we are trying as a country to get away from, because we want to get to a place where our systems of governance are working, where our leaders are accountable, where a leader is not supposed to just lay an unclaimed staff of that serious matter and not be held accountable for it. If you can accuse a head of state for such a serious crime, I think you should be having something substantiated. And maybe if that were true, then does it mean that him going to the US was part of the reason? Because I imagine back in the day, those are things somebody would say in exile, and not even dare come back to the country.
Yeah.
Because you know that if Ruto is actually that much of a devil, like he says, he would be getting right into trouble. So then why is he coming back right into the trouble? Yes. So those are the questions that are coming up in my mind.
Interesting. He's okay. Now he's back into the country. What do you foresee going forward with? Is he going to call a press conference? Is he going to do a tour in Nyanza? Is he going to go to Omabay Stadium? And talk to us, Luos. We are prepared to give him our votes. All right, people of the internet, I hope that you're enjoying this episode very much. And I just had a break to tell you about my new book. Everybody says that there is no job, and that is true. Also, that was me 10 years ago. The problem is that everybody is trying to get a job in their town, in their city, in their marketplace. They ask friends for jobs, mothers call uncles, uncles call brothers, but there are no jobs. Let me tell you what no one is telling you. Jobs migrated online. What I actually mean is there are many, many jobs around the world, and there is no one to do them except you. I work for Americans myself. I work for Europeans. I work for the Chinese. I work for the Australians. I work for the Canadians. And so, because I have done so much for myself, I said to myself, you know what? I should compile what I've been doing for the last 15 years. So in 2024, I wrote a digital book called Goldmine 18 Hustles for Africans. And then in 2025, AI came. People say AI is taking away our jobs. And for me, I'm going to say false. There are actually AI jobs. Jobs are not being taken by AI, but there are new jobs online that are there because of AI. Now, mimi ni nani? I created more jobs. And for now, in my new book, we have 25 online and offline jobs that you can leverage on if you do not have a job. So in this powerful volume 2, I share 25 new actionable online hustles specifically researched and tailored for Africans. My new book provides clear step-by-step guidance drawing from my extensive experience and research, including the mistakes I've made and lessons I've learned over the 15 years that I have worked online. So what can you do online? You can become an executive assistant for busy folks in Europe, America, Canada, and get paid for tasks like watching videos and taking online surveys. Okay? You can build a lot of things. Build a business as a virtual assistant, start an e-commerce shop without capital, be an affiliate marketer, or you can also become actually an English tutor and tens of AI jobs. If you have a job, that is fine. But I also know that you can buy this book for that brother, for that sister, for that mother, for that cousin, for that husband who is watching Netflix all day at home. Buy it for your friend who is always asking for cash. That friend. Now, all the information is on the description below. You can also inbox me, you can WhatsApp me, or go to my website, which is odworjigero.co.ke. And now, back to programming.
Jagero, with the coming of Rigathi back to the country, I foresee a situation where we are going back to the drama and the politics of simplicity that had taken a little break since Rigathi had taken off and gone to the United States.
Yeah.
Because there is a certain type of politics that Rigathi Gachagua and DCP advances.
Okay.
This politics of simplicity, where we say we are not happy because
you are putting even the party into the same basket with Rigathi Gachagua.
A party is an ideology. Yes. And the party's ideology is actually principally led by the party leader.
Idiosyncrasies of the party leader.
So the party leader is actually the one who runs the ideology of the party. So when you see the party leader and what the party leader stands for, that's what the party stands for. That's why it's very hard for me to be able to pull aside Rigathi Gachagua and DCP. And that's why when you look at them...
But there is Cleophas Malala too.
And I'm going there.
Yeah.
When you look at them, when you look at what Honorable Rigathi Gachagua advances, it is the same thing that Cleophas Malala advances. They do not necessarily talk about any objectivity. When you look at Cleophas Malala for the last 3 days towards the coming of Rigathi Gachagua, he's been able to just be spilling narratives and saying a king is coming, prepare for the king. You see that simplistic nature of politics. President William Ruto has sent goons to interrupt. You see, that's the kind of thing they talk about. It would be a bit different if you'd be telling me that we have Rigathi who's speaking this language, and then we have this one who is speaking ideology. I don't know whether you've heard Cleophas Malala speak on health. I don't know whether you've heard Cleophas Malala speak on infrastructure. I
on
don't
sports,
know
which he is very passionate about. He's not spoken about that.
You've not even heard him speak about the creative industry that he's passionate about. So it is not a party that advances ideology. It is a party that advances that simplistic nature of doing politics. And that's why I'm telling you that the coming back of Rigathi Gachagua takes the country, there would be a big attempt to take the country back to there. Remember, in the last 2 months or so, the conversation around the country has also been shifting with time. There's a lot of conversation on sports, with the president and what he's been doing to the sports people. There's been some conversation around sports. There's now the interrogation of the people and asking themselves, what is this housing agenda about? What is this SHA about? People had started now becoming in-depth to now understand exactly what are the issues. Just recently, we've had the president speak on the matter of corruption. And now when you put on your TV from morning to evening, the parliamentarians and everyone, we are now discussing the menace of corruption, what is the extent and what should we be able to do. Now that is the politics of issues. Now that is the politics that Rigathi Gachagua and DCP cannot sustain. And that's why the first thing they'll be able to do is to do processions on Mombasa Road, call each other names, say this one is a terrorist, this one has sent goons to attack us. Then we want to now thrive in some chaos that might be able to come up, some businesses that might end up being closed, and then now we discuss who do we then blame, so that everyone starts blaming the other, so that someone says it is you people who spoiled the businesses. The other people now say, no, government sent people to infiltrate the businesses. You see, we go back to that simplistic nature of politics that does not necessarily gravitate towards an agenda, because that is where Rigathi Gachagua and his troops in DCP, that is where they have a strength, and that's where they'll be able to pull the country towards. They will pull the country towards that kind of politics, because the country has kept moving towards the politics of objectivity. Now that is a very hard place to be. I try to imagine you looking at Rigathi Gachagua and him being able to really decipher the agenda of policy and telling us then on youth unemployment, what exactly are we going to do about it? I foresee a situation where Cleophas Malala would really be talking about health, and if he's saying the social health insurance is bad, what is the alternative? Would he really come here, Jagero, and answer to you that this is the alternative, that this is what I think should be able to be done, that this is the policy of DCP in regard to this, in regard to mining? What is the policy of DCP in regard to matters of mining? On education funding model, this is what DCP really thinks. Those are not things you hear from them. You hear things like, this one is bad and this one is good. This one betrayed us and this one did not betray us. It's now our community is being targeted. Those are the kind of simplistic conversations that you hear from Rigathi Gachagua. A bit different from when you hear from, say, Maraga, who is heavily anchored on constitutionalism and the rule of law. Like there's something he really wants to advance. When you talk about Matiang'i, I see him gravitating more towards the ideas of transparency and such kind of things and better governance. So that is the kind of politics that is very complicated for people who are used to the ordinary way of doing politics. And that is why the coming of Rigathi Gachagua and DCP will be able to take the country back to that fold, to that politics where we don't necessarily need to use our heads, but we want to use our hearts. Because DCP wants more to appeal to, and Rigathi wants to appeal more to the hearts in terms of this is our own. Yeah, these are our people.
Can I ask you something out of ignorance, though? When you are putting up the constitution of a political party, do you say in the constitution what you're about and what you want to do for a country?
Yes, you do.
The ethos and the ideology of the party is usually in the constitution?
It is in the constitution, and most political parties in Kenya are actually social democrats. But there is a thin line between what is in the constitution of the political party and what is on the ground.
Yeah.
Because even in the constitution of a political, and the formation of a political party by the Office of the Register of Political Parties, you cannot be able to have a party that is regional. A party must be national.
Okay.
A party must have a national agenda. So every party that you see in Kenya...
So for DCP, we have signatures from Kisumu.
Yeah, yes. Every political party that you see in Kenya, Jagero, was able to meet the threshold of registration.
Which is?
Which is that they must be a national outfit. Which is that they must have at least endorsement of 1,000 people, at least 1,000 people from each of the 47 counties.
1,000 people?
Yeah, 1,000 people from each of the 47 counties.
47?
47 counties.
So he had 1,000?
Yeah.
From Mandera?
And he must have opened offices of at least up to about 30 counties. You must have a county office. So the truth is that every political party in Kenya has met the threshold of registration. But unfortunately, most of the time we meet the threshold for the sake of it. But then on the execution part of the political party, we go back to doing the normal politics of regions. So some political parties would open offices for the sake of inspection. Immediately after inspection, the offices will be closed. Then the party will go back to being a regional or tribal outfit the way it's supposed to be. Trust me, Jagger, even Ford Kenya is a national party. It met every threshold of registration.
What are you saying about Ford Kenya?
I'm saying it's a national party.
You conveniently avoided it.
What are you saying about it?
Because what advice he's saying is that Ford Kenya has since relegated to sort of a regional, not even a regional, a village somewhere in Bungoma?
Yeah.
Fort Kenya.
It's no longer
even
having
DAP.
the appeal.
Yeah.
But what I meant to ask was, do you think this is the same disease that nearly all parties in Kenya are suffering from?
It is true.
That is what I was asking Kasmul in the morning, and he was doing nothing but just boast about ODM. ODM is the best party in this country. There are some words he used there about ODM that are very interesting.
Because that's what they say in ODM. ODM is the biggest party. I survived for 15 more years. But that's not the answer I'm looking for. I want you to weigh in terms of... Many times when people are going towards elections, we usually draw inference from Democrats versus Republicans in the US.
Yes.
Or the left wing and the right wing.
Yes.
And so however much we want to call it, the variations.
Yeah.
And yes, in essence, these countries have matured more democratically than we have.
True.
So it's only fair that we can borrow a leaf or two from them.
Yeah.
But I am also very keen on how parties, number one, tend to mimic the idiosyncrasies of a political leader, the party leader. And then how, number two, they veer off from there, because I believe every party should have a blueprint document. Should they have, like in like they have in, like, let's say, Scandinavian countries or the UK, where an opposition party has a shadow cabinet, where if, for example, they're commenting on shift, for example, then they have a policy document that outlines what they would have wanted or wished the government could do differently, or could have done in a different way altogether. So this means that we are talking about objectivity while also critiquing the voice and the reason of government. We're not just saying the government is bad, or Ruto did this, Ruto is a bad president. When you say Ruto is a bad president, you ought to have at least substantiate it with something.
But this guy does not like Ruto. I'm wondering why today is because do you have brothers in the Harambee Stars team?
No. Why for that meter?
Yeah, because today you are such a loving you love your president today. I'm wondering what is going on. I have no problem with this gentleman because but for you, I am shocked.
He's just being a truthful gentleman.
No, I'm just.
The guy is telling you, you're a truthful gentleman. Go ahead.
Yes, today I'm a bit more objective with President Ruto.
Yeah.
Because then again, at the end of the day, we cannot always continue to be critiquing all the time. We also have to at least pinch salt here and there so we can see where the wound is bleeding and where we can actually do the dressing well. So yes, the idea I wanted to advise to weigh in on how do our parties as national outfits veer off from their constitutions or their blueprints of critical documents and start to mimic the very simplistic politics that you're saying.
Yeah.
Because then again, sometimes I feel Ruto is actually a godfather of that simplistic politics.
Yeah.
He actually excels in it. It's one of the reasons why I'm a big critic of him.
Yeah.
Because he was so much of big talk and rhetorics. And I thought, because I knew the kind of work Ruto inherited when he became president, it would be the same work that Raila or any other president who would have been elected in 2022 would have inherited. So there was a lot of work. And instead of folding his sleeves and getting into the dirt of actually digging into the farm work and smelling the shit of manure, he did not do that.
Yeah.
He went into rhetorics.
Yeah.
And the rhetorics were actually fanned and fueled by Rigathi Gachagua. So then after thwarting Rigathi Gachagua, there was also not a big of a heart change for him. It came slightly, I think, around May, that's when I started seeing some change in how he addresses issues. His wish and his struggle to communicate his desire for those at least four key things: the housing, the shift, and the health, and a bit of some other issues that were coming up, especially after the Gen Z political unrest.
Yeah.
So could you weigh in on that?
You see, first of all, there is the politics as it is, and there is the politics as it ought to be.
Yes.
Now, the politics as it is in Kenya is that there is a heavy inclination on matters of political narratives, and people
just wait for that guy. Those guys will give us water. Yes.
Okay. And people simply, most of the time, responding to the reality of the politics of ethnicity, the narratives, and whatever the opposition creates as fodder for you when you are in government. Now, for every leader who is in office, president for that matter, even the governors and the people who hold executive office, is that before the governance takes center stage, you must solve the politics. Because no matter what you do, no matter how hard you work, if your politics is twisted, the governance will not be able to move. And that's why every other time, every other president has had to embrace Raila Odinga. Because it did not matter what you are going to do, but for as long as you are not going to have Raila Odinga on your side, then public perception is already against you halfway. You already have lost half of the country. It does not matter what you do.
The moment you step in the office, the half of the country.
You don't have half of the country.
Yes.
So that is usually the problem. And that's why for every person, for every president, including President Ruto, he had to come in first and be able to sort out the politics of the country first. Then you can now embark on the governance. And why is it so? The biggest blame goes back to us, the voters, we the people. Because we are the ones who consume political narratives. We are the ones who are persuaded without necessarily reasoning deeply. So when a government is in force and a government is executing something on health and is executing something on education funding, we are not very analytical to understand whether that issue really helps us or not. We are more about what does our leader say about that thing. And whatever our leader says about that thing becomes how we are going to treat that thing. And that's why political parties operate the same way. So the political parties, therefore, are not necessarily most of the time, unlike the West, interested in the agenda. They are interested in the politics in the agenda. So if we are an opposition party and you are doing housing, and housing will be able to work in the country, and that will be able to translate into votes for you, then we as opposition must oppose it. Not because it is not good for country, but because it is going to increase your votes, and our votes are going to shrink. And therefore, we must be able to tackle it in a manner that advantages us. And we as the people are the ones who are supposed to be the first people to run away from that kind of thinking. Because that kind of thinking is created by the politician because it benefits the politician. But when we get into it, we help the politician without helping ourselves. So we must be able to interrogate the matter as a people first. We must be able to interrogate a culture whereby we start having a conversation around issues and saying, if government is doing this, is it really good for me or is it not good for me? So that when I choose to support or not support, it is from a point of objectivity, not from a point of political rhetoric. Unfortunately for us, you'll be able to gather that most of the time, Jagero, if I first of all decide my politics, yeah, that is the first decision I take. The first decision we always take is to take a political stand. So we decide and say, I am not supporting President Ruto. So everything about you, including the things that work, you look for how then it can align to your already decided political affiliation. So if the president is doing something, no matter how good it is, you must look for the bit in it that aligns with your political thought process and not the other way around. Because the other way around, an objective view should be that we must be able to look at the leader and analyze the leader, then decide our politics. But most of us in Kenya, we decide our politics first and decide and say, mimi sasa, mimi ni wa one term. Then now that is the
everything
decision.
is afterthought.
So everything else then spirals towards what can really happen. And that's why you'll be shocked that we have Kenyans today, Jagero, who are not happy that the president is giving incentives to Harambee Stars. And the reason they're not happy is because they believe that that is going to make the president popular. And them, they have already made a political decision that he is not supposed to be popular. He is not supposed to be able... So every decision, whether it works for anybody, for them, it is about, does the decision align with their already decided political thought process? And that's why we continue having a problem with our governance. And that's why platforms like this, and I keep saying, are very, very important. Because then we start having these conversations, because the good thing about such platforms, at least as per now, they are not yet politically interfered. Yeah, so we can have an objective conversation, unlike the mainstream media, which is more often politically interfered. So the conversation is skewed towards a certain narrative. Yeah, so here we can actually now start educating each other as Kenyans, so that we start understanding that the most important thing for you as a Kenyan, the most important thing for you is to have service delivery. It's not about you just following a political narrative, and that's why political parties operate the way they do, because the Kenyans have accepted them to operate the way they do. And Kenyans must also be able to be, and on this I blame the Register of Political Parties, that there needs to be more sensitization on the roles of political parties. Most Kenyans just think that political parties exist for them to go to election and vote, and that is it. Most Kenyans don't understand that political parties are institutions that exist continuously.
The continuum of politics.
Yeah, whether there is the election or not, the political party is an institution. Most Kenyans do not understand that political parties receive funding from the public. Now, and that is the reason why we really decry corruption and say, we want to look at KEMSA, for instance, and say what is happening at KEMSA, what is happening at JKI, what is happening at... Have you ever seen Kenyans coming together to say what is happening in ODM? Have you ever seen Kenyans coming together to say what is happening in Jubilee? Have you ever seen Kenyans coming together to say what is happening in DCP? Yet, some of these political parties receive more money than the money you are always fighting over in some of those small parastatals. That is the reality. ODM, for instance, is a party that receives way over 400 million every financial year. But have you ever seen Kenyans? Kenyans have also accepted that political parties actually belong to people. So they handle political parties like personal entities. So even when you ask questions in ODM, for instance, the Kenyans are the first ones to say, "Hey, don't interfere with Raila. If you don't want Raila, leave." Because they have already accepted that the party belongs to the political party leader. So no one asks questions. And that's why when we start questioning political parties, and remember, the monies allocated to political parties, if anything, there are some of the monies that have a very direct line of expenditure. For instance, there is a percentage of your money in a political party that you must be able to spend on youth. There is a percentage that you must be able to spend on women.
Agenda, yeah.
There is a percentage that you must be able to spend on environmental matters and such. But do Kenyans really know this? Kenyans do not know most of these things. And that's why they do not hold political parties to account. The moment we start holding political parties to account, we will start having more results from political parties than we have today. I haven't seen any match of members to a political party to ask questions. Only when there is an election, when they are going to say our candidate has been denied the ticket.
Yeah.
That is the only time I see that.
I have an inquiry to make.
Yeah.
Most politicians we have today, nearly the caliber of all of them, are products of the politics of politics, which is what you said, the politics of the agenda, not actually the politics of objectivity.
Yeah.
Nearly all of them, including President Ruto.
Yeah.
And Rigathi Gachagua,
Yeah.
who is at the center of this topic today. What are the risks? Because we are trying as a country, like you have so far indicated, that we are trying to move towards a different political dispensation and discourse, particularly publicly. And I think this conversation goes a long way in terms of trying to change, at least change the narrative, political narrative that we have grown up with, that we have consumed as the truth and nothing else. So what are the risks? Because then again, if we stick to objectivity and we know the kind of politicians we're dealing with, the products of politics, and once from history we have seen that when they are cornered to a certain place, they become either very averse to dialogue, or they treat it as something that is supposed to just be talked over and then bandaged somewhere, and then we move to the next issue.
Yeah.
If we are to go to that direction, how do we, because this is something that all of us as a country, like nearly every individual in this country is actually a culprit of. We can't say this person is innocent, because nearly everyone operates from the point of, I'm going to decide my politics. So then if you are Raila, then you are Raila, you are a wrong person. If you are Ruto, you are wrong ever and always. Yeah. How do we move from that to a point of objectivity without the anger that we sometimes see in President Ruto, for example, when he's being asked very genuine questions? How do we move to a different political consciousness so that we can actually be more human and empathetic? Because that's how systems do not run nearly on brute and conniving and lies and the verbal diarrhea that we see a lot happening in political scenes. It also happens with empathy. It also happens with just being a decent person, with wanting to see a different country. Because if a country is working, it is working for all of us. And if it fails, it can only work for a few people to a certain extent, beyond which everybody is now in shit. So I would love for you to just weigh in on that.
I think, first of all, for us to move to the next level, we need to delink our emotions from the politics. Because most of the time, the reason why we continue being in that state is because our emotions are linked to our politics and our governance. So before it becomes a good thing, first of all, we are emotionally involved in it. So emotionally, we are about, first, before we even think about the implication of the decision of the political leader, we are first of all inclined to the reality that he comes from my tribe. And so because he comes from my tribe, I already have a soft spot. So because he comes from my tribe, when you say that there's something wrong that he has done, I'm emotionally so invested in him that the first thing I do is to hate you first. Before I interrogate what you are saying about the leader, the first thing I'm going to do is to hate you first, because I feel like you are having an onslaught on my community. So we must be able to divorce our emotions from service delivery, so that we as the Kenyans, the only thing we must be able to expect from leadership is service delivery. The moment we are able to do that, then we start having more objective conversations. The moment we start having a conversation around Rigathi Gachagua and the ills he's doing, and saying, this is what he went to the United States, and this is what we think he did wrong. The moment we start having that conversation, without you feeling like it's an attack on the Kikuyu community, without you feeling like, why are you sidelining, why are you thinking, without that kind of thing. When we start having a conversation about Raila Odinga, and somebody coming up and saying, and by their right, they say, but Raila Odinga has had too many handshakes. How beneficial have these handshakes been to government? Jagero should not react by first believing that it's an attack on the Luo community. He should be able to say, okay, fine. What is the reason? Where is your thinking coming from? The moment we're able to do that, we'll start having better structures of governance. The moment we're able to do that, we'll start looking at the issues for the reality of the issues. The moment we start looking at that, we'll start looking at, for instance, and that's why I have a lot of appreciation from my side with what President Ruto is doing. For one thing, most of what President Ruto talks about is not about his community. It's not about UDA. Most of what he talks about is what he is doing. So that when we disagree with him on the basis of those things that he's doing. He talks about his SHA, he talks about housing, he talks about all these programs of government. For the very first time or so, we are having a head of state who comes to our headline, and 90% of the times, it is not to necessarily appeal to our emotions or appeal to our hearts. It's mostly for us to be able to reason together and say, this is what I have done, what is the alternative? I think it's the better way to start looking at governance. I think, and that's why I feel like, and we had this conversation in the last podcast here, that when that continues, whether you want to vote for President Ruto or not, the moment our reasoning starts having the reasons, so that me who wants to vote for President Ruto would have reasons why, and the one who doesn't want would also have reasons why, we would have been moving step towards the right direction. Because then that will mean, if you are an opposition leader, then you will also have to provide reasons why you must be voted in. So that it's beyond just the fact that me and you are Luos, beyond the fact that me and you are Kikuyus. What is the reason why I should be able to vote you in? Because then, once I have divorced my emotions, I'll be able to look at President Ruto and say, okay, I might not like the guy, but on these and these and these, this is the reality, this is what he has done. I'll be able to look at him and say, it is true that he has tried to employ teachers, for instance. It is true that he has done affordable housing. It is true that he has implemented SHA. It is true that this is what he's been able to do. Now, but I think I will not vote for him because I think this should be done in this manner. And therefore, who is providing that alternative for me? But the moment our politics continues being, I don't like him just because I don't like him. I'm not going to vote for him just because I feel like I'm not going to vote for him. The moment we continue on that trajectory, we don't solve anything. And that will mean after every 5 years, we will keep complaining. Because the problem, Jagero with us in Kenya is, we lose objectivity every time we go to the election. Then immediately after the election, we regain objectivity. Now,
emotions are done.
Emotions are now done. Now we want work. But we had a chance to vote work. We had a chance to use that reasoning to make the political decision. But we divorced it and made our decisions on the basis of our tribes and our emotions. Then after we are done, we now want to ask people who are in office to do the things. And that's why sometimes I ask people who, when there's a lot of vitriol and bile against this administration that I did not support and I didn't vote for. But sometimes I ask, when we are talking about these things and you're saying these things are very bad, don't we sometimes pause to remember that they were in the manifesto? Because these are the very things that this administration promised. So when we are saying we don't want them, we had a chance at manifesto level to reflect on them and say, no, it can be tweaked this way. But at that time of manifesto level, what were we doing? We were using our emotions. We were using our hearts to make decisions. We were liking our tribal kingpins. We were liking the people who look like us. And then after that, we then want to expect better governance. And if we are going to do the same thing in 2027, the results will more or less be the same. And actually, we have a testing ground with the by-elections, Jagero. During the by-elections, is going to be a very proper litmus test for what will happen in 2027. Yeah. Here we are. We now have a by-election that is coming. It's about 22 constituencies. The decisions that Kenyans will make at that level will show you how they will be able to think in 2027. If in the by-elections we are still going to advance our tribes, we are still going to advance the people who look like us, we are still going to advance ethnicity, then that will mean nothing has changed. And we can't do things the same way and then expect different results. So we must anchor and understand that most of the problems that we have as a country are actually anchored more on us than on the leaders. The more we point the fingers at the leaders, for me, it's always just a convenience store to make ourselves look better. But the first problem is usually us, because no leader is in office courtesy of donation. No leader is in office because he came as a grant. No leader is in office because they came as a loan from Burkina Faso. All these leaders are in office because we, the people, put them in office. So the first person, if we have anything to blame, then we must start with ourselves. And when we do that, we'll be honest with ourselves, then we'll start interrogating the issues one after the other. Interrogate and be able to know. I always say, your favorite presidential candidate, you need to sit down and ask yourself, what will this person do about health? When Rigathi Gachagua is your favorite presidential candidate, when you sit alone, you must ask yourself, what do I think Rigathi knows about foreign policy? What do I think Rigathi would do about housing? What do I think Rigathi would do about matters of education? What do I think Rigathi would do on matters of youth unemployment? Those are the realities of the issues. When we make decisions in that frame, we make better decisions. But if your thinking is in terms of, is he from my tribe? Does he make me happy? You know, sometimes Jagera will make people make us laugh.
Yes.
Those are the people we vote for.
Thank you, guys. It was very nice speaking to Mondi Chuka. It was very nice speaking to Mundalo Advice. Always nice having you here, gentlemen. The man is very articulate. You know, you do really well as the head of Presidential Press Service.
The government is listening.
All right. Thank you, Mundalo, for coming and giving us a piece of your opinion. Thank you, Chuka. And people of the internet, thank you very much for always. These people don't want me to call them people of the internet.
Everyone firing at you in the comment sections.